just to heat up the bowl, okay? You want to warm up the bowl. And then we'll take our whisk and you whisk it in the hot water because you want to soften the bristles. Otherwise the bristles, like if you use it when it's dry, it could break. So you want to whisk it in some hot water to soften the bristles and also warm up the bowl at the same time, okay? You only need to whisk it. I think they said for like 10 seconds, but I'll just do a little bit more just in case. Okay. Okay, and then we'll dump out the water. And we will measure. I use this to sift the matcha, otherwise I have clumps. I'll measure about 3 grams. That's about a decent amount for one day's latte. Okay? And you'll scoop. Oops. 3 grams. 2. Have a little bit more. This is 2. Okay, so it says 3 grams on here. And we will just sift it into the bowl like that. Okay? You see? Okay, and then once the matcha is sifted in there, we will reset the scale. And I'm going to add 15 grams of just room temperature filtered water, okay? And then you'll take your matcha whisk and you're gonna kind of just wanna make a little paste. So you see how it's just kind of like this, a little like just more of like a paste, not really very liquidy. So you do that, okay? So you're doing 2 steps basically to add the water into it. Then I have water at 176 degrees Fahrenheit. That's best. You don't want it too hot, okay? 176 degrees Fahrenheit is the best. You're going to add 15 more grams of water, okay? Perfect. And then you will whisk it in a back and forth motion with your wrist, not your arm, okay? I whisk it for about 30 seconds. And then after that's done, you're gonna whisk the top just for about 20 seconds. Can you see in the bowl? To break up the clumps. Because see how right now there's big bubbles? Just to get rid of those big bubbles, you just whisk the top. So you're not touching the bottom, you're just touching the top to get rid of those bubbles at the top, okay? So it's a smoother foam. Okay. Then we will take a nice cup and then you'll pour the matcha in. At this point you can add a little bit of like honey, or I have non-sugar sweetener, but this milk that I'm using, usually I use almond milk, but this time I'm using lactose-free milk, and lactose-free milk is naturally sweeter, so I don't think this matcha will need any sweetener, okay? Then I will add, I just put in the bowl to not waste any of the matcha, and then I just kind of like swirl it around so to just get it from the sides and stuff like that. Then I'm gonna put about maybe like 130 grams of milk. That's about 103. I'll put a little bit more. You can add a little bit more milk or a little bit less based on what you want. But I wouldn't add too much milk because then you can't taste the matcha, and that's kind of a waste of good matcha, because if you can't taste the matcha, there's no point. See, look, perfectly simple. 135 grams. Then it's all done. You just add ice.